The moment my mother looked at my 5-year-old twin boys and said, "They're not coming on the cruise," something inside me shattered. Lucas and Noah were standing only a few feet away, holding the tiny beach hats we'd bought just the week before. They were smiling, convinced Grandma was about to tell them which cabin they'd be sleeping in. Instead, she looked at them as though they didn't belong. That was the moment I stopped trying to be the perfect daughter and started becoming the mother my boys deserved. My name is Leah Carter, and I'm 25 years old. If someone had told me a year earlier that my own mother would deliberately exclude my children from a family vacation and that her decision would eventually cost her everything she cared about, I would have laughed. Because no mother could be that heartless. At least, that's what I believed. Looking back now, I realized the warning signs had always been there. I was simply too desperate to believe my family loved me the way I loved them. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. If my younger brother Ryan forgot his homework, I stayed up helping him finish it. If he broke something around the house, somehow I was expected to smooth everything over. When he totaled Dad's pickup truck at 17, my mother spent weeks comforting him while I drove him to school every morning because he'd lost his license. Ryan never had to earn forgiveness. It was simply handed to him. He was Mom's golden child. I was the dependable daughter who fixed everyone's problems. For years, I convinced myself that being dependable was enough. Surely one day she'd appreciate everything I'd done. She never did. When I was 21, I married Ethan Carter. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't flashy. But he loved me in a way I'd never experienced before. He listened. He respected me. Most importantly, he made me feel like I mattered. 2 years later, we welcomed our twin boys into the world. Lucas arrived first. 3 minutes later, Noah came screaming into the delivery room like he had something important to announce. The nurses laughed. Ethan cried harder than both babies combined. From that day forward, our lives revolved around those little boys. Lucas was thoughtful and curious. He wanted to know how airplanes stayed in the sky, why rainbows appeared after storms, and whether fish ever got thirsty. Noah was fearless. If he saw a tree, he climbed it. If he saw a puddle, he jumped in it. If Lucas hesitated, Noah grabbed his hand and pulled him along anyway. They balanced each other perfectly. Watching them together healed parts of me I hadn't even realized were broken. Unfortunately, my mother never seemed to feel the same joy. She never openly insulted my sons. Instead, she ignored them. Whenever Ryan visited with his children, the house transformed into a miniature amusement park. New toys appeared. Cupcakes were baked. Balloons decorated the living room. Grandma hugs lasted forever. When my boys visited, Mom usually smiled politely before asking Ryan's children if they wanted ice cream. I noticed. Ethan noticed. Even Lucas had started noticing. One afternoon, after leaving Grandma's house, Lucas quietly asked from the back seat, "Mommy, did I do something bad?" I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" He looked down at his little shoes. Grandma hugs Emma longer. My heart broke. I forced a smile. Grandma loves you very much. It was the first lie I'd ever told my son, and I hated myself for saying it. A few weeks later, Mom called. "I've got exciting news," she announced cheerfully. "Come over Saturday afternoon. The whole family's coming." I actually felt hopeful. Maybe she'd planned something special. Maybe she wanted to spend time with all her grandchildren. Maybe I was still making excuses for her. Saturday arrived. Ethan stayed home because he had to work an extra shift, so I brought Lucas and Noah with me. Ryan and his wife Melissa were already there with their daughter Emma and their little son Ben. Mom was practically glowing. Dad sat quietly in his favorite recliner, flipping through television channels without really watching anything. That was Dad's specialty, remaining silent. Mom clapped her hands dramatically. "I've got wonderful news." Everyone looked up. I booked a luxury Caribbean cruise for the whole family this summer. Emma squealed. Ben started jumping around the living room shouting, "We're going on a boat." Lucas's eyes became enormous. "Mommy, are we really going to see dolphins?" Noah immediately asked if pirates still existed. I laughed. "Maybe. For the first time in weeks, I saw genuine excitement on their faces. Mom reached into a folder and began handing out printed itineraries. One went to Ryan, one to Melissa, one to Dad. Then she handed one to me. I smiled until I looked closer. The reservation listed only 2 passengers, Leah Carter, Ethan Carter. I frowned. Mom, where are Lucas and Noah? Without even looking at me, she answered, "They aren't coming." I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. What? They're staying home. The room went silent. I stared at her. I'm sorry. I don't understand. Mom sighed dramatically. Leah, this vacation is supposed to be relaxing. I blinked. So, they're 5. They're loud. They ask too many questions. They'll slow everyone down. For several seconds. I honestly couldn't process what I was hearing. Ryan suddenly became fascinated by his coffee cup. Melissa looked at the floor. Dad kept staring at the television, like none of this was happening. Nobody spoke. Nobody defended my children. Lucas looked up at me. Mommy, did Grandma mean us? I felt tears burning behind my eyes. I swallowed them back. They're family, I said quietly. Mom folded her arms. So are Ryan's kids. I looked around the room. So Emma and Ben are invited. But my boys aren't? She nodded without hesitation. Exactly. Lucas slowly removed his little beach hat. Noah copied him. Neither child understood what was happening. But they knew enough to realize they weren't wanted. And seeing that realization appear on their innocent faces hurt more than anything my mother had ever done to me. I knelt in front of Lucas and Noah before either of them could ask another question. I forced a smile that felt painfully fake. Hey, guys, why don't you go into the backyard and show Uncle Ryan how fast you can race? Lucas looked at me uncertainly. But Grandma, I gently squeezed his shoulder. Go on, sweetheart. The boys slowly walked outside, still carrying their little beach hats. The moment the back door closed, I turned back toward my mother. The smile disappeared from my face. You let them hear that. Mom shrugged. They were going to find out eventually. They're children, I whispered. They're your grandchildren. They've spent weeks talking about this vacation. She rolled her eyes. They'll get over it. That sentence hit me harder than a slap. They'll get over it? They're 5 years old. Ryan finally cleared his throat. Leah, Mom's just trying to make the trip easier. I looked at him in disbelief. Easier for who? For everyone. For everyone except my children? Melissa shifted uncomfortably, but still said nothing. Dad remained glued to the television. Not once did he look at me. Not once did he tell Mom she was wrong. That silence hurt almost as much as her words. I picked up the itinerary and slowly folded it in half. So this is your final decision? Mom crossed her arms. Yes. I paid for the cruise. I decide who goes. I nodded. Fair enough. She looked satisfied, assuming I'd finally accepted it. Instead, I calmly placed the papers back on the table. Then here's my decision. If Lucas and Noah aren't welcome, neither am I. Mom laughed. Oh, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being their mother. Ryan shook his head. Leah, it's only one vacation. I turned toward him. That's easy for you to say. Your kids weren't excluded. Emma was quietly coloring in the corner, completely unaware of what was happening. Ben chased a toy truck across the floor. Neither child was responsible for this. But their parents were. I looked directly at Melissa. You really think this is okay? She hesitated. I don't want to get involved. I smiled bitterly. You already are. I grabbed my purse and walked toward the front door. Behind me, Mom called out one last time. If you leave now, don't expect another invitation. I stopped for just a second. Without turning around, I answered quietly. And if you keep treating my boys like strangers, don't expect another daughter. Then I walked out. The drive home was silent. Lucas sat in the back seat staring out the window. Noah hugged his little stuffed dolphin. After almost 10 minutes, Lucas finally spoke. Mom? Yeah, sweetheart. Does Grandma not like us? Every muscle in my body tightened. I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to protect him. But children are smarter than adults think. They already know the truth. I reached back and held his tiny hand. You didn't do anything wrong. Remember that. No matter what anyone says, you are loved. Lucas nodded quietly. Noah leaned against his brother and whispered, I still like Grandma. Those 5 words broke me. That night Ethan came home from work and immediately knew something was wrong. He found me sitting on the kitchen floor after the boys had fallen asleep. What happened? I couldn't even answer. I just handed him the cruise itinerary. He read it once, then again. His jaw tightened. They actually excluded our boys? I nodded. They said they'd ruin the vacation. For nearly a minute Ethan didn't speak. Then he carefully folded the paper and placed it on the table. I've spent years trying to respect your mother. But this. He shook his head. This is unforgivable. I know. He sat beside me on the floor. So what do we do now? I looked toward the hallway where our boys were sleeping peacefully. For once, I'm choosing them, not my mother. He smiled sadly. I was hoping you'd say that. The next morning our phones exploded with messages. Ryan texted first. You're making Mom cry. Then Melissa. Can't you just apologize so everyone can move on? My Aunt Susan wrote, families make mistakes. Don't ruin the vacation over this. Not one message asked how Lucas and Noah were feeling. Not one person apologized. According to everyone, I was the problem. I deleted every message. By lunchtime, Mom called. I ignored it. She called again. And again. Finally, she left a voicemail. Leah, you're embarrassing this family. People are asking why you aren't coming. Call me back and stop acting childish. I listened twice. Then I deleted it too. 3 weeks passed. Life slowly returned to normal. The boys forgot about the cruise. Children are resilient. Adults, not so much. One Thursday afternoon, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. Hello, may I speak with Ms. Leah Carter? This is she. My name is Daniel Foster. I'm the attorney representing your grandfather, William Brooks. I sat up immediately. My grandfather? Grandpa William had passed away almost 6 months earlier. He and Grandma had practically helped raise me whenever my parents were too busy focusing on Ryan. He was the one person in the family who never made me feel second best. I need to meet with you regarding your grandfather's estate. I frowned. I thought everything had already been settled. There have been recent developments. When can you come to my office? The seriousness in his voice made my stomach twist. Tomorrow morning. Excellent. And Ms. Carter, please don't discuss this meeting with anyone until we've spoken. The call ended. For several seconds, I simply stared at my phone. Ethan walked into the kitchen carrying groceries. Everything okay? I don't know. I told him about the call. He frowned. That's strange. Very. Neither of us slept much that night. My mind raced with possibilities. Had Grandpa left me a letter? Old photographs? Something sentimental? Money never crossed my mind. Grandpa wasn't rich. At least, that's what everyone believed. The next morning, I arrived at the attorney's office 15 minutes early. Mr. Daniel Foster greeted me with a warm handshake and invited me into his office. A thick folder sat on his desk. He opened it carefully. Ms. Carter, before your grandfather passed away, he made one final amendment to his will. I frowned. I don't understand. He slid a sealed envelope across the desk. Neither did the rest of your family. I looked down at my grandfather's familiar handwriting on the front. It simply read, for Leah, when she finally chooses herself. My hands began to tremble. I had no idea that opening this letter was about to change my life forever. I stared at the envelope for several seconds before carefully breaking the seal. The paper inside was folded neatly. The moment I saw Grandpa's handwriting, tears filled my eyes. My dearest Leah, if you're reading this, it means I've finally left this world. It also means you've reached the moment I always hoped you would, the day you stopped sacrificing yourself for people who never appreciated your heart. I swallowed hard. Mr. Foster quietly waited while I continued reading. I've watched your mother choose Ryan over your entire life. I stayed silent too often because I believed she'd eventually realize what she was doing. She never did. My vision blurred. Grandpa knew. He had known all along. But I also watched you become the kindest daughter, the most devoted wife, and the best mother I've ever known. You never stopped giving, even when everyone else only took. A tear landed on the page. That is why everything I built now belongs to you. I looked up in confusion. Everything. Mr. Foster nodded. Your grandfather was far wealthier than most of your family realized. He opened another folder. Inside were documents, property deeds, investment accounts, and business records. For over 40 years, he explained, your grandfather quietly invested in commercial real estate. He also owned part of a successful construction company. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The total value of the estate is just over $6.8 million. I forgot how to breathe. $6.80. Million. Yes. And according to his final will. He paused before finishing. You are the sole beneficiary. I stared at him. What about my mother? She received a personal letter. What about Ryan? He received one as well. No money. Mr. Foster slowly shook his head. Nothing. For nearly a minute, neither of us spoke. Finally, he slid another document toward me. There's one more thing. I looked down. It was Grandpa's lake house. The place where I'd spent every summer as a little girl. The place where Lucas and Noah had learned to fish. The place Grandpa always called our family's real home. It belonged to me now. 3 days later, the family cruise departed exactly as planned. Without me, without Ethan, without Lucas and Noah. I saw the photos online. Ryan's family smiling on the ship. Mom posing with tropical drinks. Captions like, making unforgettable family memories. I laughed bitterly. Family memories. Apparently, mine had never counted. I didn't post anything. Instead, I spent that week moving into Grandpa's lake house. The boys ran through the backyard laughing. Ethan repaired the old wooden dock. For the first time in years, I felt peaceful. Then my phone rang. It was Mom. I ignored it. She called again. Then Ryan. Then Melissa. By the end of the day, I had 23 missed calls. Something had happened. The next morning, Mr. Foster called. I thought you'd want to know. What happened? Your family learned about the will. I blinked. Already? Yes. Your mother demanded a copy. And? I gave her exactly what your grandfather instructed. What did the letter say? He smiled slightly. It simply read. He looked down at the file. You spent your life teaching Leah she wasn't enough. I'm spending mine proving she always was. I closed my eyes. Grandpa, even after he was gone, he was still protecting me. The calls became desperate. Mom left voicemail after voicemail. Leah, this is all a misunderstanding. We need to talk. Families shouldn't fight over money. Money? Now it was about money. Not my children. Not the cruise. Not the years of favoritism. Just money. Ryan texted next. Mom's devastated. Can't we all sit down together? Another message followed. Grandpa wouldn't want this. I almost laughed. Grandpa had written the will himself. This was exactly what he wanted. I didn't reply. A week later, there was a knock on my front door. Through the window, I saw Mom. Alone. She looked different. Tired. Older. I opened the door but didn't invite her inside. She forced a smile. You look well. I'm happy. She glanced around. So, this is yours now. Yes. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she sighed. I think your grandfather made a mistake. I stared at her. A mistake. Ryan has children too. He needs help. I couldn't believe it. She still didn't understand. This isn't about Ryan. It's about fairness. No. I shook my head. It's about choices. You chose him. Grandpa chose me. Her face tightened. So you're really keeping everything? I looked past her toward the backyard. Lucas and Noah were chasing butterflies near the lake. Their laughter echoed through the trees. I am. You'd let your own family struggle? I looked directly into her eyes. You let 2 5-year-old boys believe they weren't part of their own family. You made your choice first. For the first time. She had no answer. Just then, the front door opened wider. Lucas ran outside. Mom. He wrapped his arms around my legs. Noah followed seconds later. "Mommy, we caught a frog." They stopped when they saw Grandma. Both boys smiled politely. "Hi, Grandma." Mom bent down. "Can I have a hug?" Lucas looked at me first. Not because he was afraid, because he wanted to know if he should. That broke something inside her. I nodded gently. "It's your choice." Lucas hesitated. Then he gave her a quick little hug. Noah did the same. Mom began crying. Real tears. She whispered, "I'm sorry." Lucas tilted his head. For what? Children have a way of asking the hardest questions with the simplest words. Mom couldn't answer. Because how do you explain to a 5-year-old that you made him feel unwanted? You can't. She left a few minutes later. She didn't ask for money again. She didn't argue. She simply walked to her car looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Ryan tried reaching out several more times. Eventually, the calls stopped. Months passed. Life became wonderfully ordinary. We renovated Grandpa's lake house. Ethan started his own construction company using some of the inheritance. I created college funds for Lucas and Noah. We traveled together. Not because we wanted to prove anything, but because my boys deserved memories filled with love. One evening, while watching the sunset over the lake, Lucas climbed onto my lap. "Mom?" "Yeah, buddy. Is this our forever home?" I smiled. "It can be." He grinned. "I like it better than the cruise." I laughed through tears. So do I. Because that cruise would have lasted 1 week. What we built instead would last a lifetime. Looking back, I don't think my mother lost the inheritance. She lost something far more valuable. The chance to truly know the grandchildren who would have loved her without conditions. As for me, I didn't walk away with everything because Grandpa left me millions. I walked away with everything the day I chose my children over people who never chose us. And if I had to make that choice again, I'd choose Lucas and Noah. Every single time.